People can and do change. Sometimes we know people a long time and it seems like, well, they'll never change. But actually, people can change and people do change. I had a friend years ago. His name was Chuck, and he was a really nice guy to be around. He was a friend of mine, and I enjoyed doing things with him. However, his problem was that he was an alcoholic, and he did a lot of drinking, and he would try to quit, and it just didn't seem like it worked for him. He just would go back to drinking. One time when I was at Sunday school, uh, Chuck came to where we were having Sunday school, and he asked me if he could come to Beaver Lake. Yeah, and I told him he'd have to ask Amos Esch. So he said, "Well, you call Amos because if you call Amos, he'll say that I can come. But if I call him, he might say no." I said, "Okay, well, let me drop off all the children. And when I drop off the last child, I'll call Amos and see if you can come to the camp." So we got to the last house. So I dropped off a little girl and said, "Okay, I'll go in. Let's go in, and I'll call Amos." So I went in the house, and there was a party going on there. People were drinking, and so I asked them if I can use the phone, and they said, "Yes, you may." So I'm looking around, and I couldn't see the phone anywhere. And I asked them, "Well, where is it?" "It's over there." And say, look, I couldn't see it. And say, "Where is it?" "It's over there." And finally, the lady of the house, she said, "Well, somebody show him where the phone is." And so she said, "Follow me." So I went with her, and we went through the kitchen, down the steps into the basement, back into the back bedroom in the basement. There was the phone. So I phoned Amos, and he said, "Yes, Chuck can come to the camp." And then I heard a fight break out upstairs. I thought, "Oh no, now I got to get up there and got to get out of the house." So I went upstairs, and when I got upstairs, the man of the house was sitting in the corner of the living room in his recliner. He said, "Come here." So I went over, and he grabbed me by the hand, held onto my hand, and he said, "I want you to leave my house and never come back." And I said, "Well, if you'll let me go, I will leave." And well, he was saying some other things to me, and Chuck came over, put his hand on the man's chest, shoved him back into the recliner, broke his grip on my hand, and he said, "If I want him to help you, that's my business. You leave him alone and don't be talking like that." So I made my exit. I went out to the van. So Chuck came out. We went back to the camp, and Chuck sobered up. And but a few weeks later, I met him, and he was back to drinking, and that went on. That pattern went on for a number of years. However, one summer, I was at a family camp at Beaver Lake, and I walked into the back of the tent, and there I saw Chuck sitting on a bench toward the back of the tent. So I walked over and sat down beside him, and I was talking a little bit, and we talked a bit, and then Chuck said, "Merle, next month it's going to be a year since I've had a drink." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's 11 and a half months I've been sober." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, there's this lady lived close to me there, and she always wanted a father, and I always wanted a daughter, and so we kind of hit it off, and her family kind of adopted me, and they had a little cabin behind their house. I moved into that cabin, and I was living there, and he said, one day I was listening to the Lewis family. I kind of like that style of music, and I was listening to a CD of their music, and saying, I don't know what happened, but somehow I through that music, I just understood the gospel message of Jesus Christ. And I gave my heart to the Lord Jesus Christ, and he delivered me from alcohol, and I haven't had a drink since." It's like, "Chuck, that's amazing. That's, he's, and I, I don't know what to say really." And he said, "Yeah, well, I don't know why I couldn't quit before, but now I have." And he said, "I'm really concerned." He said, "I could have died so many times." He's saying, "I'm 57 years old, and I could have died so many times. I was an alcoholic for 40 years, and so many times I could have died, and somehow I didn't." But he's saying, "I have men who are friends of mine who are older than I am. They're getting close to 70, and they're still drinking." And he said, "I'm talking to them and telling them, you guys got to quit." and before it kills you. So I told him, well, Chuck, well, at break time, I got to tell Amos. And so break time, I found Amos, and I said, Amos, you got to come over here, talk to Chuck, like he's here, and he hasn't been drinking for almost a year, and he's talking to some of his old drinking buddies about stopping drinking. And so Amos came over and he's, Chuck, just let me give you a hug as a brother in the Lord. And he gave him a big hug. And Chuck said, yeah, I guess when Merle told you I was here, you thought, same old Chuck, same old story. And that's exactly what I thought when I walked in the back of the tent. I saw Chuck sitting there. I thought, well, here we go again. I like Chuck. He's a good man. He's a good man to be with, and I enjoy him. And but I'll talk to him, and it'll be the same old story. But it was different. It was really different. Why? Because Chuck had had a change in his life that happened through his experience with the Lord Jesus Christ, and that made a difference in Chuck's life. And Chuck was a new person. Chuck was a different person. He did change. And so there may be people in your life that you look at and you say, ah, they're never going to change. Anything is possible. Anyone can change.